Hey y'all, welcome back. I have decided that I'm going to split up the video that I made for the Ready to Renovate Virtual Summit. It's really lengthy, about 40 minutes, and I feel like a lot of people come to my page with one specific question on water damage, and I think it's going to make it easier for those of you who are looking for specific areas of water damage to kind of navigate where that's at. This video is going to be specifically for your roof. So if you have damage to your roof or if you have some soft spots on top of your roof, this is going to be a great video for you. Definitely make sure to like and subscribe for more. And if you have questions related to your specific camper, send me a message and I'll do my best to help you out. Hope this is helpful. Now, I've tried to simplify this in the best way possible, so I broke water damage repairs down into 6 categories. So these principles will be used for all types of repairs, and they're really the core of all water damage repair. I'll go into each one of these in more detail, but the 6 R's of water damage include resealing your camper, removing the damaged wood, reframing, reconfiguring your electrical, R13, which is a type of insulation, and then replace, which is adding new paneling or OSB. Now, before you think about starting on repairs, you need to make sure that the leak has stopped and there's no more water intrusion. So you need to locate where the water is coming in and then reseal that area. Common places for leaks are windows, exterior lights, and basically all corners and edges of the camper. As you can see in this picture, the water was coming in from the roof in this little gap right there and was leaking all the way down into the ceiling and created a pretty nice soft spot in the ceiling that I had to replace. So that's all it takes is one small gap to have some pretty extensive damage. Now next, you're going to want to remove any rotten wood or insulation. Make sure to take a picture of your framing so you can have an idea of how it all goes back together. A multi-tool is really great for cutting in tight spaces where you're kind of trimming off the rotten wood of your framing. And it's going to help you control your cuts and not dig into the aluminum or fiberglass siding. You'll also want to clean up your studs, trusses, or joists by removing any nails, staples, or glue from your frame. Now, after all of your damaged wood and framing is removed, you're going to want to rebuild your frame. I usually like to work piece by piece until all the framing is repaired. Definitely refer back to that picture that you took of your framing so you can have an idea of how it all goes back together. So basically, I measured the dimensions of my original framing and ripped down 2x4s to that same size to rebuild it. I use overlapping and stagger joints to join the new wood into the existing framing. I'll go into more detail about what I call a buddy joint in a few minutes, so definitely keep that in the back of your mind. Now, if you're repairing frame damage, most likely you will have to reroute and reconfigure your electrical wires. So campers have a 12 volt and 120 volt system. Basically, your 12 volt wires are going to be really small. Your 120 volt wires are going to be much larger. They're usually encased in white or yellow, as you can see in the picture. There's both in that picture, and the 120 volt will have 3 separate wires in them. There's going to be a black, a white, and then there's a copper for the ground. So you'll be able to tell the difference if it's a 12 or 120 volt. Now, do your best not to cut the wires, especially if it's 120 volt. Try to feed them back through the wall or the floor or wherever if possible, and then reroute them to where they need to go. But if you have to cut them, I highly recommend that you learn how to solder. I do have a video on my YouTube about how to solder wires back together, but there's lots of good videos all over YouTube about soldering wires. And my main reasoning for that is you don't want to have to be digging through your wall or your ceiling or your floors because your wire nut came off and your wires aren't connected anymore and something's not working. So if it's going in anything that I'm not going to be able to get to easily, always solder it. Now, always feed your electrical through the framing. Never add paneling or floor or ceiling directly on top of electrical wires because then you run the risk of pinching it, and then you're definitely going to have some electrical issues after that. Now, I like to use R13 insulation. It is inexpensive and it works really well. So floors and ceilings will use a full roll of insulation, and for the walls, you'll need to tear the thickness in half. So your last step is going to be to replace. You're going to add a new piece of paneling or OSB over the framing that you just repaired. Basically measure and draw out your piece, cut it, test fit it, and then use construction adhesive and to glue the wood onto the frame, and then you can use staples or screws to secure it. Now, this is very important. If you don't listen to anything else in this entire presentation, listen to this slide. So first, you're going to make sure that your camper is unplugged and your battery is disconnected. You can even go as far as flipping your breakers off just to be safe. My reasoning for that is because you don't want to electrocute yourself, because chances are you will be dealing with electricity, your wires, all that fun stuff. So unplug your camper, don't electrocute yourself. Next, always try to work in 4x8 sections, always. So campers are built using 4x8 sheets, and it's a lot easier to replace the whole panel than it is to cut small sections out and try to repair it that way. It's also going to make your camper look like there was never any water damage at all if you repair it based on the dimensions that the manufacturer built on. Last, always split the framing when repairing water damage. Well, what does that mean? Let me show you a few examples. So let's look at a wall first. You can see the highlighted areas where the studs are, which are evenly spaced 4 feet apart. When you go to reinstall a new panel, the edge of one side will be nailed to the right half of the stud, where my white arrow is, while the other side of the panel will be nailed to the left side of this other stud, which is the other white arrow. All right, last but not least, let's go over roof damage. This is by far the most tedious and time-consuming type of water damage to repair. I get this question a lot, so how do I know if I need to replace or reseal my roof? My simple answer is if your roof looks anything like the picture, it needs to be replaced. So rubber roof skins only have a lifespan of about 10 years. So if your camper is older than that with an original roof, it's time to start thinking about replacing your skin. Resealing it will only help with heat deflection and rubber conditioning and not with water intrusion. It's a huge misconception that adding a rubber roof coating to an old roof makes it waterproof. I cannot tell you how many roofs I have replaced where the owners told me they resealed it and don't understand why the ceiling is caving in from a leak. Also, personally, as a flipper, if I'm going to sell a camper that's 20 years old for the price of a new camper, I'm definitely going to make sure that the roof and all of the vents are brand new. This is just my opinion, my 2 cents, but I have replaced countless roofs over the years. It's something that I always, always, always do. And you can only reseal something so many times. I mean, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. You can only do it so many times before somebody realizes that that's a bad roof. And if you see the black patches on the skin right there, that's basically where all of the rubber has worn away. And that basically the underlayment part of the roof is showing and it's exposed. And there's really not much you can do after that point, because resealing it will, it's such a small thickness of what you'll put on when you roll it on. It really does not work and does not do anything. Now, just for entertainment, I'm going to run through the whole wood repair process and the basics of replacing the skin. So for repairing the wood, you'll need 7/16 OSB, some 2x4s, and some deck screws to start. Now keep in mind your wood thickness may be different than 7/16 on your roof, so make sure to measure the exact thickness of your specific roof and replace it with the same thickness. Now again, the exception to this is the aluminum frame. I would suggest looking to see what they fastened the roof, the wood on the roof with, and kind of go from there to see how they did it on that roof. Now this is a picture of a roof that I did. Again, working in 4-foot sections, start at wherever your water damage is located. In this case, it was the entire roof. So you can see in the yellow that just popped up, those are the 4-foot sections that I worked on in this roof. I started my way at the back and worked my way forward 4 feet at a time. You can do this either way. You can start at the front and work your way back, which is usually how they're made. But I did not do that in this camper because, as you can see in the front, let me get my pointer here, right here, it was there's no wood left at all. I couldn't stand on it, and it's really hard to rebuild a roof when you're not standing directly on top of it. So the back was in a little better shape, so I started from the back and worked my way forward. You will have a shorter piece either on the front or the back, so as long as you space your trusses out evenly so your OSB lines up, then you'll be good to go. Now, depending on your location, you may not have to do all these steps, but I'm going to run you through a total skin replacement, and you can take from it what you need. So the first step is to remove your awning. If you have a fifth wheel, the awning won't have to come off because it's not attached to the side rails, which is great. But for pull behinds, the awning needs to come off. Now, search on YouTube for your specific camper because the removal process will be different if you have a manual or automatic awning. Now after that, you're going to want to remove your side rails. There's a plastic screw trim cover that you'll remove and then take out the screws one by one. You can then use a putty knife to loosen the side rails, and they should come off fairly easily. Try not to bend them because you will need to reuse them. You'll also need to remove all the vents and the AC unit, and there's lots of good videos on YouTube on how to remove those. You can then start to peel back the old skin, working section by section. I just cut it with a razor blade and just start peeling. So this is the part of the process where you burn 100,000 calories in 30 minutes and start to question your life choices, because it does take a long time. It doesn't feel like a long time. It's only like 30 minutes is how long it took me to do this, but I burned a lot of calories and I was super tired. Yep. Right about there, halfway through the roof is where you start to question your life choices. Why did I start renovating campers? Why am I doing this? I don't understand. This is probably the worst part of it. But after the skin is removed, you can start removing your damaged wood, working in 4-foot sections again. The OSB is nailed down. So start at an edge with a crowbar and a hammer and just kind of work your way around until the piece starts to come up. Now, if you've seen the video, I have a truss that came up right there because it was rotten. So watch out for that and watch out for any electrical that decides to come up with it like I have in this piece. So you're basically just going to have to work at whatever is rotten. Just work the nails up because it is lots of nails. And then eventually you can just work at it and it'll come up. And then I like to throw it off the roof. There it goes. Now, if you are replacing your trusses, make sure that they are spaced correctly. So it should measure exactly 4 feet from the middle of one truss to the middle of another truss. Now, there's another reason I only work 4 feet at a time, because when you take the structural integrity of the roof off of the camper 4 foot at a time, your walls are going to go like this. They're going to flop out. Okay, so if you see on this picture on the right, I have a ratchet strap, and I put a ratchet strap from one side of the camper to the other, and I kind of just tighten it until my walls cave back up and straight to how they're supposed to be. So that's a really good tip right there. That way your walls aren't crooked. Now let's talk about trusses. I make my own using a jig that I made a few years ago. All of the campers that I have replaced trusses with have been the same measurement, so thankfully I've been able to use the same pattern that I made. Now to make your own trusses, you need to take a truss from your camper that isn't severely damaged and basically make an exact replica of it. If you don't know how to do this, any woodworker or general contractor should be able to recreate one if you give them one of your old trusses. I make them out of 2x4s, so it's fairly inexpensive to make. It's just a little bit of time consuming because the edges and blocks are angled to make the curve on the trusses in the correct position. Now I will say I do not like to cut trusses or anything like that. If I'm going to replace a truss or if it's rotten, more than something on the edge, I will replace the whole truss. And my reasoning for that is it kind of gives up the structural integrity of a truss when you cut one side off, just because of the way they're made and the way that they are bent to shape. Now, if you have a situation where only the very corners of your trusses are rotten, you can actually rip down some 2x4s to the exact dimensions of the lower part of your truss and basically just add a support on both sides where the red highlighter is right there. You're basically just going to make a little buddy to go up alongside the truss to support it. Then you can screw the new wood into the truss. As you can see where my arrows are pointing, that is the direction you're going to want to put your screws to go in the trusses in the correct position. Now, one thing to note, if you have roof water damage over cabinets like this picture right here, you'll need to unscrew your cabinets from the ceiling from the inside of the camper. After your wood is removed, make sure to remove any staples from the roof side where that yellow is right there. You're going to want that to be as clean and as smooth as possible. Now, after any structural issues are repaired, you can go ahead and put your new piece of OSB on the roof. I put center blocks on each side to bend the OSB a little bit so I can screw it into the trusses. Again, make sure you drill some pilot holes if you're going to use those deck screws, just so you can kind of sink them in really good, because you don't want your screws to be sticking up because it can actually poke through the PVC skin. Now, the only holes in the roof that I pre-cut are the plumbing vents. Any other holes, I add a whole sheet to the roof, and then I go from the inside and drill a pilot hole that I then stick my flush trim bit in and just router out the shape of the vent. And that way it just makes life a whole lot easier, and it's the perfect cut each time, and I don't have to worry about the hole being off or anything else like that. So the router is a great tool with a flush trim bit if you don't have one. Okay, now for the fun part. So after your roof is repaired, it's time to apply your new skin. So first you need to tape all of your joints and seams with duct tape. I like to use Gorilla Tape. It's a little stronger and it holds up really well. So make sure to tape any areas with screws as well as around vents. Now the ideal temperature is between 70 and 75 degrees. Any colder and your glue will take a really long time to settle and dry. Make sure to blow and clean off your roof of any debris. Next, you can roll out the skin the entire length of your roof, readjust it if needed, and I like to work half a section at a time. So once you've got it rolled out, I roll the front back halfway, and then I will pour some glue out and spread it with a paint roller. You don't have to use anything fancy here, just a regular paint roller will do. As you can see, I keep my glue separate until I roll it out. It just makes life a little bit easier. So just dump it, roll it, and then hop back over to that middle section and start working your way and smoothing it out. You will smooth out any air bubbles as you go section by section. So work your way all the way to the front, and then I trim the excess skin off of the back of the camper and then roll the back half towards the middle part where you've already started. And then same thing, pour out the glue, repeat the same process as the front half. So it's not super time consuming. It's just a matter of having a little bit of patience to work out those air bubbles. You know, I don't have any special tool I use other than I just kind of smooth it out with my hands. And if the temperature's right, the bubbles will basically just settle themselves out anyway, which is great. Now, after you finish, make sure to mark your vents with a Sharpie with a big X. That way you don't accidentally fall through your camper, because that would not be good. We don't want that. Okay, now after your skin is glued on, you're going to want to clean your side rails, the front, the back, and both side rails. Apply new butyl tape and reinstall with new screws. Don't forget your screw trim cover. That's pretty cheap. You can buy like 100 feet on Amazon for like $15. You're also going to want to cut the holes for your vents with a razor blade in an X pattern. Staple the skin to the inside of the framing of your camper and install your new vents, and then reinstall your awning. Here I have laid out some basic supplies for the skin, If you're replacing your skin altogether, I highly recommend the PVC roof kit, which includes everything, the skin, the adhesive, the butyl tape, and the self-leveling sealant. Now, I use PVC to replace the skins on my camper for several reasons. PVC skins have a 10-year warranty and are used on a lot of commercial buildings. They don't ever have to be resealed, which is great. And if you ever like back into a tree branch or you get a tear or a rip in your roof, you basically just get an extra piece of that skin that you cut off the back and you can glue it over the existing skin. You don't have to peel it up. You don't have to remove any of your side rails. You don't have to do any of that. You can basically just put a patch over it with PVC glue and call it a day. It is great. Now, if you're not replacing your skin and you're just kind of peeling it back to repair the water damage and then putting it back the way it was, you will need acrylic adhesive to glue your skin back down, butyl tape to reseal your side rails, and the self-leveling sealant to seal the side rails, the front and back rails, and all of the vents that are on your camper. Now, here is some good preventative maintenance tips just to help keep away the water damage, because we all know campers are very prone to water damage. So these just kind of help put the odds ever in your favor, so to say. First, you're going to want to walk your roof. Just get up there, inspect it for rips, tears, any holes in your sealant. Just give it a good look over about every 3 months. That way, if there is something that has a problem area, you'll be able to notice it. Another common thing for roof is the cap on your roof vents fly off a lot. I've seen that so many times. So it's a good idea to just get up there and look at it, because that's not something that you can see standing on the ground. Another thing is sealing your windows. So naturally over time, the sealant on the window dries out. So it's a good idea to reseal your windows every 4 or 5 years. That's a huge area where campers leak. Just about every camper I have ever done has always had a window leak every single time. So just as preventative maintenance, reseal it every 4 to 5 years. I do have a video on YouTube and on my Instagram on how to reseal a window in your camper, so check that out. Now, pressure test before opening your camper up for the season. You're going to want to pressure test it and make sure that none of your lines have busted in the wintertime. So to do that, they actually make a special fitting that screws into your water hose. And then you get a air compressor set at about 15-20 psi, hook the air compressor hose up, and that way if you walk in your camper, it's going to be hissing. You're going to be able to abundantly tell if there is a water leak. So that is way better to do it that way than hook your water up and turn it on and then your camper be flooded with water. So if you don't have that type of fitting, I would highly suggest looking into buying it. It's a great asset to have for any RVer. Also, replacing the O-rings if necessary. So your water lines have these little cone washers inside of them that, they dry out over time. I've seen it a million times. If you have a water leak inside your camper, and it's coming from your plumbing where you screw the, where it screws into a fitting or something like that, absolutely check your O-rings and replace those if needed. The only place that I have really found the right O-rings is Ace Hardware, surprisingly. They do sell them in the store. They're like $1 an O-ring, but I always keep some handy because you never know when you're going to need it. So yeah, those are just some pretty good preventative maintenance things that, just keep it in the back of your mind. That way you won't have to repair water damage, hopefully down the road. And I think that is it for me, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I am on Instagram. That is my YouTube channel right there, also Fallen Into Camping. And there is my Gmail. If you have any questions or you need to email me, just feel free to reach out, and I will do my best to respond to you guys. I hope you enjoy the rest of the summit, and I can't wait to see the other presenters. Y'all have a good day.